The stars have aligned for a Red Hot Chili Peppers review to happen, my friends. God himself, Mr. John Frusciante, has returned to the band again, and my patrons voted their hearts out to make sure this album was the winner to get a spot on Throwback Week. Plus, I got Flea's book for Christmas, so it must be a sign, right? Hey neighbor, welcome back to Throwback Week, right here on ARTV. It's time for a closer examination of album numero 7, Californication, by the funk rock band Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's no secret now that they're one of my favorite bands of all time, and with John Frusciante now on his third stint in RHCP, it's time to review this lightning rod of an album that spearheaded his second run with the band. One Hot Minute is underrated. I'll just cut right through the bullshit and say it. Dave Navarro is a talented as hell guitarist, and he fit that album well, but he wasn't quite the guitarist of the Chili Peppers, if you catch my drift. John fits this band like a missing puzzle piece that keeps getting lost under the couch only to be found a decade later. When he came back into view in the late 90s, it was absolute fucking magic, as Californication was the start of a 3-album arc that I think is pretty much untouchable. With a huge chunk of their most beloved songs falling from this formidable apple tree, it cemented the spot of, oh, that's my favorite Chili Peppers album for millions of people all around the world. Is it my personal top favorite? Not quite, but go check out my episode of Ranked on the band where I lined up all of their albums from worst to best in my own personal opinion. The beauty of album 7 lies within the subtle changes to the core sound of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Flea's bass is thoughtful and intense, deviating a bit from the traditionally more pummeling style we know him for. The lighter mood settled in on the less successful album that preceded it, but here Anthony Kiedis just smashed it wide open with the orgasmic blend of poetry, flow, and tenderness in his voice. Chad Smith is an underrated performer on Californication, escalating some of Frusciante's big guitar moments at times, or running with Flea's bass grooves to really make this batch of songs something special. But of course, there's no denying Anthony and John on the record. I mean, come on, they're brothers in arms, 2 peas and a flea, and Chad. Anthony's never been that much of a scholar, let's say, when he writes. He's a carnal man with carnal desires, and a lot of times he pens songs to match that. But this album did change things up a bit as he swerves lanes with not only the subject matter, but also his vocal range and tone as well. Smooth is probably the best word to give you a general feel for the structure of the music. It's bliss whether the funk rocking is on the gas pedal or if we're simply in cruise control with Frusciante conjuring up a peaceful state of zen. There's an incredible contrast in colors not only in the album's artwork, but also in the music. Think of that cover like a metaphor when it comes to that. You get the crystal clear blue skies, but also the boiling lava-looking substance on some of the hard boppers like Get On Top, Around the World, or Emit Remmus, which I actually just recently realized is Summertime spelled backwards.
You're a dumbass.
Soulful penetration. That's the best way I can sum up Californication. Even though I can't talk about every single song on the album, let's transition to the tracklist breakdown to reflect on some of the classics. The feeling of driving down the West Coast enters your eardrums on one of the best Chili Peppers songs, This Velvet Glove. I've only been to California one time, but this album, and hell, more importantly, this specific song, were must-haves for my playlist while driving my piece of shit rental car down the PCH. Majestic acoustics and intoxicating breezy electric from Frusciante breathes life back into you as you listen, and Kiedis is almost angelic on this underrated gem as he sings one of my favorite little lines of all time. Your solar eyes are like nothing I have ever seen. Otherside translates the heartbreaking battle with addiction, not only for Kiedis, but also all of those suffering around him in silence. Anthony's dad didn't exactly raise him to be wary of drugs, to put it lightly, and I really think that's a huge reason why he was so tortured from a young age. Always looking for something to fill that void, but continuing to backslide, especially as he vents out tracks like this. Otherside has remained one of my favorite songs of all time since I discovered it in the mid-2000s, but it also serves as a prime example of just how well their softer side can pull through. It's not just about having the high tempo to make the Chili Peppers work. Flea's more minimal approach on tracks like this still sting you to the core. To turn the tables to something a little bit more lighthearted and up-tempo, Purple Stain is a raunchy funk rocker that opens with the classic "To finger paint is not a sin, I put my middle finger in" lyric. I wonder what he could be talking about there. I mean, I'm just a naive little lad, I wouldn't know. Capping it all off is a major jam session from the band in the final 2 minutes, led by a growing guitar solo that overtakes in intensity before expertly giving way to the next song right on time, and that thing is an absolute steamroller, so watch out. One might make a similar argument for the devouring attitude of Get On Top, a cut that sees Kiedis in command and barking orders to anyone who will listen over a swerving funk groove that's incredibly satisfying to hear. Savior changes up the vibes with a bit of western fairy dust sprinkled all throughout. Huge props to the band for pulling off the incredible moment where they essentially stop the track and then come back, add a little bit of falsetto from John Frusciante on the backing vocals, and they never seem to lose a beat when they kick back into that chorus. The guitar solo is also borderline surfy and psychedelic, which only adds to what makes this one so great. Porcelain is another change of momentum, with this song sounding just a bit like Collapsia by Queens of the Stone Age to me, which I know, 1, I probably butchered the pronunciation of that track, and 2, I also know that the Queens track came out way later, but if they happen to take inspiration from the Chili Peppers, then that's pretty rad. I love the tender punch this one gives. It's a slow pull like the crest of a wave slowly crashing on the California shores below. For this next moment of magic, I just want a show of hands out there in the comments section right now for anyone that went through a major phase where they just replayed the ever-living hell out of Parallel Universe. My time with it may have come later than others, but it happened a few summers ago and I could not stop playing this track. I love how they took it from a light little guitar to an even bigger push that just keeps throttling, drifting, and sliding in all the right directions. It might just be
better than sex.
Okay, I wasn't gonna go that far. Let's be mature about this. Jeez, dealing with a bunch of children over here. Easily deserves a quick mention since it does seem to get forgotten about more often than it should when people talk about the album. Its high spirit and jubilant expression are felt instantly. It's like catching up with an old friend from high school every time you hit play, but you know, a friend that you actually did want to see again. Scar Tissue and Californication are both undeniably classics at this point. Love them or hate them, they are, and I for one never get tired of either. Lyrically, I will say, I prefer the title track from the album with its almost mysterious open atmosphere that feels reminiscent of the 60s, along with its commentary on the Hollywood scene, but Scar Tissue is just as irresistible. They're both songs that I would rarely, if ever, hit the skip button on when they come up. Keeping with the coverage of the singles, Around the World kicks off the experience with a howling guitar buzz and an instantly recognizable shout from Anthony. Alternate title for this funky jam? How the Red Hot Chili Peppers Got Their Groove Back, featuring John Frusciante. Now, Road Trippin', on the other hand, closes out the album's ride across the California countryside as a reflection on Anthony's life, his friends, and really anything else on his mind. If Around the World was the pep rally, then Road Trippin' is the victory lap after the big win. You really can't deny this one. It's a sweet little ditty to wrap up this 56-minute record, with one last little glance in the rear view before speeding off down the highway for some much-needed R&R. Perfect score territory is being charted once again with this overwhelmingly good LP. So a 5 out of 5 for me, and I would love to know what you guys think in the comments section down below. Now that Californication is more than 2 decades old, what do you think about it, whether you're new or old to the band? Thank you guys so much for tuning into Throwback Week. Please drop a like on this review. I know a ton of you were excited to see my coverage of Californication. Finally, I did talk about it in my ranked episode of the Chili Peppers, so if you want to see that video, to see my thoughts on all of their records, then check this link right here. See my top 10 on the Chili Peppers here, and connect with me on socials in the description down below. I'll see you soon for more in 2020 on ARTV.